My pleasure. How are you today?
Very good. And, I know as somebody who calls these games, I mean, it's probably something that's very unique and different from covering Major League Baseball as you do on Baseball Tonight. And it's got to kind of be a highlight to see these kids. I mean, how disappointing is it to hear something like this go down? Because you're in that area, you're with these kids, you see the families. It's got to be pretty disappointing when you're there and see it, and then to hear this news today.
Well, it is. I'm not disappointed in the kids. I'm disappointed in the adults, and I'm disappointed in a few of the adults because I'm sure there were moments where they privately sat with each other and said to each other, "We're doing something here, and we keep winning, and I'm not certain that we're going to get away with this." And right away, that's an empty feeling in your stomach to know that you have done something which, at least at the outset, people were wondering where some of these players came from. So they knew that there were questions being asked. The disappointment comes in that these kids, many of whom I'm sure were naive to the fact that this was done illegally, as opposed to being aware that they've added this group because they were under the impression that the boundaries by which this team was drawing from was done on the up and up, and it was legal. So I'm disappointed in the adults. It doesn't take away from the emotions that the kids experienced during the summer, but it certainly is a horrible life lesson for them to find out that they were part of a manipulation as opposed to something that was done genuinely. So, there are a lot of questions that sort of are asked around it. Why didn't anybody bring it up earlier? And even if they did, how were they able to keep it quiet? It seems like the answers are that the boundaries were redefined by this Jackie Robinson West team, and ultimately a district administrator signed off on them. He was associated for 20 years with the Jackie Robinson West Little League team, so there were pieces in place to allow this to happen. Even among the protests of some parents from surrounding towns, it was copacetic on the investigative level in the beginning, and obviously it has now since been found out that they did this on their own. They changed the boundaries.
Yikes.
So it's disappointing from the kids' perspective. It's terrible.
Yeah, it really is. And as I mentioned, Karl, I coach youth baseball. I serve on the board for a Babe Ruth level league, which is not associated with Little League, but I certainly know the boundaries and stuff that goes into this, and you wonder what the ramifications of this decision will be for not only that team, but moving forward. I know somebody, you call these games, and, I don't know how deep you dig deep into the stuff that happens behind the scenes, but the ramifications for some of these teams that just look like they're having a great time when they see you there and see that they're on television, how that's going to change things down the road.
Well, I think that's true even for the Chicago team. When they came on the set, they had the very same facial expressions that your 12 and 13 and now 15 or 16-year-old kids have. They felt the same emotions that any other team that's ever been up on that set feel, and perhaps because they were from an inner city and this was an opportunity to do some things that maybe they'd never experienced before, they were even more excited and elated and young and exuberant and youthful and naive in a lot of ways. Little League International only does their background checks once a team reaches these regionals and super regionals. Prior to that, it's all done at a local level. And it does strike me as sort of stunning that in the town I live in, if all of a sudden our 12-year-old Little League team added 3 or 4 players from a now extended boundary, parents would ask a lot of questions because it would impact certain kids that had been with this team for the 4 years. These were 5 or 6 12-year-olds. They were added as 12-year-olds. It's literally like they were planted somewhere as a group, and now they're all on this Little League team. So clearly 5 kids that were on it are no longer on it. Surrounding towns are aware of where these kids live. It is a little odd that it was able to get as far as it got in spite of their efforts to cover it up, because I know at least where my experience has been with Little League, you have so many policemen and policewomen and police kids who are making sure the stuff doesn't happen. It would be, I don't know if in your area someone would be able to pull this off, but it takes a lot. It takes a village to pull something like this off, given the amounts of questions that would have been asked.
People certainly try, Karl. Karl Ravech is with us. He called the Little League World Series. And, what does this